we get great responses that, you know, their eyes have been opened to.
We're all special and individuals.
We don't wear brand labels. You see different.
In the Bible, it says in Matthew 5:23-24, it says,
this group has been around via Facebook. One of my friends
Cool thing to do at the moment, and like until you're married.
thank you to our wonderful audience. Welcome to Saym TV. My name is Jake, and I'll be your host for today. We thank you for joining us. Thank you to our panel as well. Thank you for taking your time. Here on my right, we have Sandra, Joyce, and Langi. Thanks, guys, for taking time as we discuss depression and peer pressure. Now, you know, young people are faced with a lot of expectations from the media and also their friends and the groups that they hang out with. And sometimes when these expectations aren't met, it can sort of make them depressed because they don't fit in. And sometimes when trying to fit in, they do things that are not usually themselves. You know, they sort of act to sort of fit in, so they do something silly that they you know, wouldn't do when they're by themselves. Now, what are some of the things you've faced? I know, Langi, you're a chaplain at a high school. Joyce, you're surrounded by high school students, and Sandra as well. What are some of the things that depress our young people today?
You know, there's a lot of stresses out there, Jake, and it's prolonged stress that turns into, becomes depression. And some of the reasons for depression, for people being depressed, is loss of loved ones, even a change in their lifestyle, you know, change in terms of moving from one place to another, maybe graduating as a young student, getting married can cause depression.
Depressed, oh, true.
Heading into a divorce can cause depression and those sort of things. But there's so many things, you know, physical, sexual and emotional abuse can cause a lot of depression, deep depression, major depression. So
it goes over a long term of just being down, and then eventually depression is sort of like the kick, like, you know, it kicks in later on. And how does a person know when they're depressed?
It's really hard to know because I don't think, like, depression's just everywhere and no one can avoid it.
I think it's like once you're in that mindset, once you are really depressed, it's I don't think people themselves can really see it when they're like that. It's only when other people point it out and they say, look, you're not, I don't think you're doing too well. You know, what's up? Do you need to talk? You know, it's that kind of, it's other people that can see it more so than the person themselves, because, you know, you can confront them and say, are you okay? And they'll be like, oh no, I'm not depressed. What are you talking about? Depression's, you know, for other people, not me, you know.
That's the other thing though, for someone who's depressed to actually admit that they're depressed is another thing. Because, I mean, not everyone who is depressed will go break down in public and say, I am depressed, help me, help me.
Yeah, sometimes
most of them just keep it in and hope to solve it somehow, or hope for it to be solved itself in the future.
Is that a dangerous thing though, or is the way to go? Don't trouble anyone by your, you know, by things you're feeling down.
I think it's a very dangerous thing.
Why so?
That can lead to things like suicide, and you know, where a person is just so cooped up and just doesn't want to face things, or feels like they can't, or they're just so deep under that they feel like they have absolutely no hope. And I think that's the worst thing that could ever happen.
Feel like they're isolated, feel like they're lonely, and that leads to, you know, suicidal.
And just lowers their self-esteem and confidence.
And can sometimes make them distance themselves from people as well.
And that's and it doesn't really help if someone's depressed and just isolates themselves from everyone else too.
Now let's just tie this. You know, you hear a lot of people saying kids that think they're depressed are just seeking attention. What do you think of that? They're just attention seekers. It's like, you know, you have those kids that, you know, are always crying, are always wanting help. You know.
I think that to provide a child with attention is a good thing.
Yeah.
Because I think if a child needs if a child is that desperate for attention, it means that they will probably be more prone to depression if they do not get that attention. And it is a lot easier saying hi to a little kid or just hugging them or talking to them nicely than ignoring them and later having to deal with a depressed child.
Because sometimes, you know, you got to take into consideration their home life. You know, they
And
may not ever receive any attention. That's why they're mucking up. But I think there are cases where, you know, people who want to seek, you know, they want that attention, have sort of played on it to get it.
It's also, you know, depression can also be in the family history. Notable examples where depression is part of the, you know, the family history, and is passed on from generation to generation. So
Some sort of like chemical imbalance.
And you know, that could also play a big role in these kids turning out the way they are.
Now, because depression can be caused, we can talk about a whole, you know, heap of topics that can cause depression, like body image for girls, and you know, so there's a wide spectrum, you know, on depression. But let's link it to peer pressure. How do you think a young person can get depressed? But I mean, I thought friends were a good thing to have. You know, friends are meant to be good things to have. You know, because you hang out with them and I mean, they're friends. So how can friends cause people to be depressed?
Maybe if you feel like you're being peer pressured to do things that you know aren't right, but because you want to still be part of that in crowd, and you know, the fear of losing your friends, you continue to go down that path, and you continue to do what your friends are doing, even though you know within yourself it's not right, and then that guilt maybe can lead to depression.
But then it's also very easy for someone who's depressed and wanting attention to easily fall into peer pressure as well, just because they want friends and they want to fit in. So it's all very hard because there's all these conditions that a person has to be in. And that's why it's very hard to really say, oh, this person's got this type of depression and it can be treated like this and this and this, because just everyone deals with losses and stuff like that differently. And so what you would think as, say for example, a little kid breaks a pencil. I used to cry when I broke my pencils, I remember that. Or get annoyed when my little sister steps on them. And I would be so depressed because I'd line them up nicely, height order, colours and everything. And I would just get so depressed over something so small. And of course, like now I look back at it, I'm like, what was I thinking? But yeah, so...
It was a big thing then.
Yeah.
I mean, I used to cry. You know, when I was younger, I used to cry if my friends wouldn't talk to me. You know, it was a big thing.
So then you take it to the extreme where some girls that you hear of, I'm not sure if you guys have experienced it or know someone that has, girls that get depressed over their looks because their friends are getting all the boys. Yeah, their friends are the one in the bikinis while they have to cover up because they can't strut their thing in front of their friends. You know, not only peer pressure in doing things, but also being with friends, and feeling, you know, inadequate to hang out with them because they're too good for you. Like, have you guys ever experienced that or come across people that have?
There are definitely a lot of girls that experience that.
Yeah.
I mean, if
every girl feels that at one point in their life.
Because if no girl experienced that, we wouldn't have these issues such as anorexia and bulimia, especially being a major issue with girls. I mean...
But like Lungi, was going to say before, but yeah, it's also a boy thing as well.
Yeah, well, it is, like, you know, growing up, you know, there's an expectation for boys as well. I mean, I don't know, but especially for Islander boys, like, it's you know, you're expected to sing good, play sport, and, you know, bad marks. But, you know, but we won't get into that. But, you know, it's just an expectation that Island boys have. And, you know, they think, oh, yeah, I got to be, you know, I got to be cool, I got to be, you know, I got to be a good fighter. Even to fighting, it's like, oh, who's stronger than who? Did you grow up with that?
And if you're limited, you don't feel like a part of the group, you know, and you try and do your best to try and get the strengths that you don't have.
Be
And
as
that's-
manly as possible.
Yeah. If you don't have the muscles, then you're going to go into the gym and spend, 15 hours.
Yeah. Well, we didn't experience that.
No, but
Well, we'll go over to our music segment and we'll see what Nathaniel and Rachel have for us this week. Over to you guys.
Thanks, Jake. Well, for tonight we have an awesome review on Laura's Story, an upcoming artist who is really into more contemporary Christian style music. Rachel, tell me a little bit more about Laura's Story.
She was born in 1987, and her latest album, which is Blessings, her debut single off that, which is the song called Blessings, hit #1 on the Billboard Christian charts.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah, I think we'd want to give that a listen, so here we go.
'Cause what if your blessings come through raindrops? What if your healing comes through tears? What if it's 1,000 sleepless nights, or what it takes to know you're near? What if...
A brilliant album. Her this Blessings album actually was her biggest grossing album, and it's what really brought her into the limelight of Christian music, contemporary Christian music.
And that song definitely is very uplifting with the topic on depression tonight. If you listen to that, I guess it takes away all the fears and all of your worries. So.
And teaches you to rely on God. So if you're looking for some new music to listen to, check out Laura's Story. Back to you guys.
Thank you so much, guys. You know, there's this new initiative that has come out, and I've seen it on the ads a few months ago. I think the day's around September with Hugh Jackman, and it's called Are You OK Day? And it's basically they're advertising for people just to ask, the people around them in school and in work, hey, are you okay? What do you guys think of that initiative that they're doing?
Yeah, I remember that day. We did that at school.
Okay.
Yeah,
Were you okay on that day?
Yeah, I was fine. I was hypo as usual.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just, I didn't know about it actually until that day, and I just rocked up to Free and everyone's like, are you okay? I'm like, yeah, why is everyone asking me?
You just feel very special.
Yeah, I know, yeah, but it feels good. Like, even if I'm already not depressed, obviously, but like, it's nice to know that you always have these people behind you that are always going to ask you, are you okay? Other than just, are you okay day? But yeah.
I think you've got to remember that some kids never get to, to be asked that question.
Yeah.
And just to be asked makes them feel special and makes them feel worthy.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people and a lot of kids in today's society don't get. So.
Yeah, well, it comes down to that. I mean, you guys mentioned it. It makes them feel special, because some of these kids that are depressed that you don't know about, are keeping it to themselves. And then by you asking, hey, are you okay? It's just like, whoa, does this guy really want to know my story? And I think that's all these kids, or even people in general, young and old, are just after, is for people just to listen. Just to ask, are you okay? But, we need a lot of people that are generally, are you okay? Rather than, are you okay? Because I saw a lot on Facebook when it happened. Heaps of people on Facebook were like, they sort of mocked it in a way. They were like, are you okay? Like on their statuses, and people would just make stuff up. They really tease it a bit, because some of them have never been through it. But for the people that are going through it, it's just like, whoa, dude, like,
And it's got to become a regular thing, because if someone is really struggling with something, they're not going to, as soon as you're, are you okay, can I just tell you their whole story, because they may not feel like they can trust you. And it's like you've got to build up that relationship before someone is willing to say, no, I'm not okay.
That's right.
Now peer pressure, guys. We've all got friends, and we all grew up with peer pressure. What are some of the stories you guys have of things that you have done caused by peer pressure that you wouldn't normally do if you were by yourself?
When I was 12, I was peer pressured by my two best friends to kiss the boy I liked on the cheek.
Oh, it's true. Okay.
It was a very traumatic moment.
Do you still know the guy today? Or?
Yes.
Oh, okay. What about you, Joyce? Anything?
I have to say, I am too good to be peer pressured.
Yeah, whatever.
No, but
Cause for a challenge.
I just can't remember any. But I definitely agree with that statement that you just made, because I remember at Year 8 camp, like a couple of years back, and it was biggest night, last night of camp. Everyone's just so into it. So best game and most common game was Truth Dare, Double Dare, Love, Kiss or Torture.
No.
So the aim of this game is either tell the truth, to be dared, you've got to admit to loving someone, kiss someone, or you get tortured.
I was lost this game.
Yeah, pretty much, eh? And so that was pretty much it. And that was just like a whole cluster of just people being dared and peer pressured. So the moment where peer pressure just rises, fills the room, I guess.
And if you don't do anything, you're like condemned for the rest of your life.
What about yourself, Langy? Growing up?
Well, growing up, going through a public high school, I mean, I was faced with peer pressure every day. Sex, cigarettes, alcohol, you name it. But and the kids wanted me to do the stuff that I didn't want to do. But later on, it was hard to resist.
Yeah.
I chickened out, and I had to do it because I couldn't chicken out, because I wanted to be a part of. I wanted to be accepted, and that was a desire for all the boys, to be a group, and so. Cigarettes was something that I got into early age, early teens. Instead of taking the one cigarette, I remember taking about 3 or 4, and getting home, and then I didn't go to school for the rest of the week because my dad gave me 3 or 4. A couple of beatings, a couple of knocks. But it's a pretty difficult thing, peer pressure.
Yeah, it is.
It's one that. You need to be strong in your convictions and your beliefs to be able to stand up to some of the
Were you afraid that you were going to lose all your friends if you didn't? If you didn't participate?
I was afraid, to be honest, because these are the boys that we grew up together, and they were the sort of the cool guys in school. So.
Even growing up, I mean, it's hard for a boy to take, hey, you're a chicken. Because I'm like, no, I'm not a chicken.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta do it. I'm not a chicken. I mean, I remember growing up, my cousin had this van and no seats in the back, and he would get me and some of all our other younger cousins. We're only like 9 or 10 at the time, and he would give us boxing gloves. Like, okay, you guys fight. Whoever falls down, they're the losers. And I didn't want to fight. One of my cousins, he was a really good fighter. Oh, not now, but he was back then. And I remember, okay, you have to fight him. And then I jumped in. I was really, really scared. I wanted to pull out, but that's all I heard from outside the van was, "Oh, you're a chicken. Oh, you're a girl. You're a girl." So we had to go on with it. I wouldn't brag about the fight, but So there's just some of the things, for boys. I mean, even we've discussed girls, but for boys, it's just they don't feel man enough if they don't do it. They become a pansy, as Aussies would call it. So, but we'll head over to our science segment now, and we'll see what Ebony and Artie have for us this week. Over to you guys.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the lab. Today, as you know, we're looking at depression and peer pressure.
Yeah, and generally when people talk about peer pressure, it's generally associated with a bad connotation. Like people are pushed to, say, do drugs, to do alcohol, to sleep with this person, or whatever it might be.
Sometimes, though, peer pressure can be a good thing, whether it's pushing to go to university, pushing to
maybe go on a trip somewhere, or take
a job,
yeah,
that sort of thing. So, yeah, I just thought that it would be interesting to... Everyone knows what's going to happen. We're going to shake this up. And this is you, and you're being put under pressure.
You want me to do it?
You
do the honours.
Ah!
So you can see it just wants to jump out and spray everything.
So this analogy, no matter if it's good or bad, what's going to happen is there's going to be some form of reaction due to the pressure that you're being put under.
And the problem with this, when people are pressured, it can cause people to be upset and react in certain ways, and that can actually cause people to go into these spells of maybe depression.
Yeah, and depression is another topic that we're talking about today, as you know. Depression is the most common form of mental health problem. 1 in 5 people experience it, and depression at some stage in their life. It sometimes makes people angry, irritable, scared and restless. It often leads people to keeping themselves to themselves and sometimes even self-harm.
So today we have a bit of a small experiment, one that we have already done because it takes a bit of time to kind of work. And so what we have here is some ethanol, so just some alcohol, and we put it into this container. And so
what we did was we coloured it in with black texture.
And so it's not paper, it's actually filter paper, kind of. And this kind of form, what we're doing is actually called chromatography. And so when you put the filter paper with the ink into the solution here, what happens is it begins to creep up the filter paper and actually separate the colours that are inside that ink. And so because it takes a bit of time, we have actually prepared one earlier. And so you can actually see, if you zoom in,
filter paper,
it might be a bit hard to see what's going on, but there is actually about 2 different colours. So maybe if you put that up against some white, maybe you might be able to see it a bit clearer. But there is a bit of green, a bit of blue inside that black ink.
And if you can see, purple. So that means there'd also be red in there as well.
Yeah, and so what we're trying to show with this chromatography is that there are actually a number of different things that people go through before they actually go into this spell of depression.
And also there's different factors, like there's factors of depression. Like different spells, there might be, you might go through a period of time where you want to be to yourself, go through a crying phase, all that sort of thing. We've looked at some of the things that you can do to help yourself during this time of depression. We definitely advise you to seek help. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with suffering depression. It's just like having a cold, and you just need to...
It's treatable, which is, you know, a great thing, unlike some other things that, you know, you can take medication. It's completely fine too.
But one thing that we thought was a really interesting thing is that there's it's a chemical imbalance sometimes in your brain. So we also thought of something that can help you.
Something that's really simple too.
Yeah, simple, that can help you to just feel better, and that's to smile. Sometimes...
just forcing on a smile can even make you feel better.
Yeah,
which
psychologists
is really weird.
have actually proven this and have found that even when you're in a bad mood, if you force yourself to smile, it instantly lifts your spirits. Number 2 would be to boost your immune system. Smiling is contagious, which is number 3.
And so when you see someone smile, you generally smile too, which is really cool too.
Smiles relieve stress. And it's easier to smile than it is to frown. Scientists have discovered that your body has to work harder to use the muscles in your face when you are frowning than it does when you're really smiling. Just a quote to finish it off. Marie Osmond says that it's the sad thing about depression. You don't function anymore, your body shuts down, you feel like you're in a void. But if you're feeling like this, and you may have depression, so we just say that you should talk to someone and feel comfortable talking about your situation.
Whoever you feel comfortable with, yes, talk to them, because it would definitely help.
So back to you in the studio.
Thanks a lot, guys. And it is important to talk to people, like Ebony and Artie mentioned. And it's crazy how 1 in 5, you know, suffer from depression, but the person that's being depressed thinks he's all alone. And they think, oh no, no one else knows what I'm going through. It's only me in this world that feels like this. But it'll be encouraging for those people that go through depression to see, hey, I'm not the only one. So you speak up so that other depressed people can see and be like, okay, it's okay to speak up. Because at the moment, it's sort of like, I'm stuck here and I'm by myself and only I'm thinking these thoughts. So yeah, thanks guys for that. So, you know, with peer pressure and depression, sorry, Andrew, can I start again, bro? Sorry, I lost my wording. I forgot where I was going, sorry.
Thoughts?
Yep, ready.
3, 2, 1.
Cool, thanks guys. It's interesting that they mentioned that 1 in 5, you know, people suffer depression, but the person that's that is depressed usually thinks that they're all alone, and it's only them that can tackle their problems. And yeah, so what do you guys think of that?
I actually had a thought on peer pressure, but what Adi and Ebony said about the fact that there's both positive and a negative peer pressure, and that, you know, some peer pressure is good, but it's just, you know, it's when it's negative that things turn really bad. And so I think that leads into, you know, making sure that you associate yourself with the right kind of people, you know, so that you can have that positive influence and that positive pressure that will help you to get through life.
Right. And another important point that Addie and Ebony mentioned was there is help out there, and for them to seek help. They can, you know, there is a cure for it, there's a remedy for it, and don't be scared to seek help.
And like, there's always a chaplain or a social worker, or even, you know, someone that's within the school system that's always there to talk. And Lungi, yourself, you're in that position. What are some of the things you say to people, or what are some of the things you say if you see someone depressed but they haven't spoken to you? How do you treat them, and how do you take them under your wing?
I haven't had the opportunity to do that. Some of the incidences that have taken place in school, in our school this past year, in fact, their friends have come up to me and told me about it. So what I've done is gone on to seek more professional help for these students, and put them on to people who are professional to look after the situation and be able to give them some help. And some of them have been given the help that they've been seeking.
Yeah, that's really important, getting the help, but also being a friend and just making sure that you are there for them, because, you know, it is more often than not a chemical imbalance that can't be helped and needs extra help to get through.
But it's also a good thing that the only thing you need to do is smile.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have problem with smiling, but just a smile, simple smile.
Yeah, that's it.
And I guess for anyone who is like crying, you know, you often find someone who's crying, and like if I'm crying, for example, I'll just start cracking up if I see something happen. So that's a good thing as well.
Yeah, I think it's just awareness as well for your mates, or like just be aware of your friends around you. I remember I used to hang out with a guy or associate with a guy that had bipolar, but we didn't know till later on. But at the time, like at the time, we used to call him Danny twice, because he would always say things twice. Like, hey Danny, how are you? He'd be like, yeah, good, good. We're like, oh, where are you going? He's, oh, just over there, just over there. Like he would always say, we'd always make fun, be like, oh, Danny twice. And later on, we found out he had bipolar, and we weren't aware of it because, you know, we just took the mickey out of him. But it's also important just to, hey, look at your friends, and if there is anyone, you know, acting strange or you know, keeping to themselves, for us to switch on, be like, okay, is there something wrong? Do they need to talk? And just approach them. So yeah. We'll head over to our health segment now, and we'll see what healthy tips Shani has for us this week. Over to you, Shani.
With high meat consumption being linked to certain cancers, heart disease and high blood pressure, it's no wonder that we're having to think more carefully about what we put into our bodies. Some studies have indicated that vegetarians enjoy a longer and healthier life and have lower risk of diabetes, heart disease and some cancers. So if you're thinking of becoming vegetarian, make sure your diet includes vitamin B12 and iron, which can be found in foods such as kidney beans, lentils, broccoli, asparagus, cheese and eggs. And if you're missing out on those, perhaps a couple of supplements would be good as well. But if you're really hooked on your steak and you really like the taste of meat, perhaps you can swap a side of fries on the side for a plate of vegetables. Or you could swap a steak for a grilled fish. So having healthy bodies is essential for optimal function throughout our busy schedules, so make the swap today and feel the difference. That's your health tip for the day, and back to you on the panel.
Thanks a lot, Shani. I think I'm one of those people that are passionate about our protein. We like to call it protein. We shall swap the fries for some veggies. Now, guys, closing thoughts on this topic. Any advice to those that are out there that are facing this sort of thing?
Don't be afraid to say it to someone.
I guess
like, even if it's a good family friend, just go out there and say it. Yeah. Otherwise, it becomes very dangerous for yourself.
And watch out for your friends.
Yeah.
Seek help.
Yeah, seek help. Speak up. Awesome. And I think we covered it as well, is that they just want to feel special and they want to feel loved. And I want to finish off with a verse found in Romans 8:35 to 39. And I'm reading from the Message. It says, "Do you think anyone is going to be able to drive a wedge between us and Christ's love for us? There is no way. Not trouble, not hard times, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not bullying threats, not backstabbing, not even the worst sin listed in Scripture." And later on it goes to say, none of this phases us because Jesus loves us. I'm absolutely convinced that nothing living or dead, angelic or demonic, today or tomorrow, high or low, thinkable or unthinkable, absolutely nothing can get between us and God's love because of the way that Jesus, our Master, has embraced us. And I think if you know that if you don't feel the love around you, just know that there's someone out there that does, even though you don't know him. The good thing about Jesus is you don't have to know him for him to love you. You know, he's already loved you. And I think this verse speaks for itself. And when we don't live up to expectations of peers and the media, you know, because we need to know and we need to let people know that, you know, Jesus has already embraced us. And if this is causing you to feel down and, you know, it will eventually depress you, know that the God of the universe, you know, the creator of the universe loves you so much and will never let anything get in between you and him. Thank you guys for joining us on the panel, and I thank you, for watching today. Also, thank you to our audience. We'll see you guys next week.
In this week's bulletin, abuse victims charge the Catholic Church with crimes against humanity. Plain cigarette packs mandated in Australia. And a TV actor lashes out against his own show.
This is In Focus Christian News and Current Affairs.
Hi there and welcome to In Focus. We're on the countdown to Christmas, and today Dr. Lisa Morton-Standish is back with some great practical ideas for presents. Kent talks with the head of the Bible Society in, wait for it, Lebanon, about how they're lending a hand in that troubled region, and we'll find out whether peace and goodwill is spreading throughout Canberra as politicians begin their Christmas break. That's all after the news with Danielle.
Thanks, James. As the Australian government prepares to launch an historic royal commission into the handling of child abuse, a group of abuse survivors says the Catholic Church is guilty of crimes against humanity. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, SNAP, the survivors' network of those abused by priests, has made a formal complaint to the International Criminal Court in the Netherlands. SNAP says it's a crime against humanity when a person with the power to stop further abuse fails to do so. The submission joins more than 20,000 other documents that have come from concerned groups and individuals around the world. Australia is the first country to mandate plain packaging for cigarettes, and it's producing some unexpected results. From October this year, tobacco manufacturers have been producing the plain packs featuring graphic health warnings. And by law, from the 1st of December, retailers can only sell cigarettes in plain packaging. According to the Sydney Morning Herald, early feedback has seen smokers complaining that cigarettes from the plain packs taste different.
You know, the only thing glamorous about smoking was the packet, but you know, the colours, the style and so on. So obviously once that's stripped away, they can look at those pictures of cancer of the mouth and throat and lung, and that's not glamorous, and I guess in the mind it's saying, hey, this doesn't taste so good after all.
American ministry All Power Seminars has announced that its founder and speaker, Leo Shreven, passed away suddenly last weekend. Shreven was known for his dynamic speaking style and emphasis on personal development and financial growth as a means to helping people discover the secrets of eternal success found in the Bible. In recent months, Shreven apologised for strong statements he made about his denomination, the Seventh-day Adventist Church, and said he would pull back from his public commitments. During his 30 years of public evangelism, Shreven helped plant a number of churches around the world, including in Christchurch, New Zealand. Shreven is survived by his wife and daughter. He was 51. Christians in South Kordofan State, in the disputed border region between Sudan and South Sudan, say the northern government is targeting them in airstrikes. According to Morning Star News, 4 people have been killed in aerial bombings over the last months. A Catholic church has been destroyed along with 2 aid agency buildings and a number of homes. The local Nuba people, many of whom are Christian, say the attacks seem to have no military objective but are just aimed at terrorising the population. A Chinese Christian who helped up to 400 people escape from North Korea is now in need himself, as Chinese authorities have issued a warrant for his arrest. Tu Ai Rong has already spent 6 months in prison for assisting the North Koreans. After his release, he escaped from China into Thailand, where he has now been waiting 2 years for his refugee application to be processed.
我已经在这里已经待了2年了，还一点消息都没有。我现在也不知道我的出路在什么地方。
Mr. Tu and his family are receiving support from a congregation in South Korea and the China Aid Organisation. Well, he was one of television's most highly paid child actors, but at 19 years old, Angus T. Jones has now called his show, 2.5 Men, filth, and urged people not to watch it.
Please stop filling your head with filth. Please. It's you know, people say it's just entertainment. The fact that it's entertainment,
The YouTube video posted by the Forerunner Chronicle Ministry went viral and prompted negative media commentary about Jones and the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which he joined earlier this year. In response, church leaders in North America publicly welcomed the actor into the fold, but distanced the denomination from the independent ministry that posted the video, saying it's not recognised by the church. Angus T. Jones has since apologised for his poor choice of words on the video. Well, restaurants offer vegetarian options, airlines provide kosher meals, and now gluten-free bread is on the menu for Holy Communion. According to Queensland's Sunday Mail, more than 2,000 congregations of various denominations around Australia are taking up the option of low-gluten or gluten-free communion bread in consideration of worshippers with special diets. And communion practices are also becoming more consciously hygienic, with the common cup being phased out in favour of individual cups and hand disinfectant being used before handling bread. But it has to be Ashgrove West Uniting Church in Brisbane that takes the cake. Their communion bread is gluten-free, nut-free, dairy-free and vegan-friendly. High-achieving employees at the Sanitarium Health and Wellbeing Company have been rewarded with a trip to tropical Vanuatu. But instead of 5-star resorts and pampering, the 11 Spirit of Sanitarium winners were taken to a remote village on the volcanic island of Tanna and presented with paintbrushes. The visitors worked with locals and ADRA personnel to complete a school classroom as well as run health talks and kids' activities.
People here in this village truly inspire me, and it's really driven me on to complete the project.
Sanitarium Health and Wellbeing is owned and operated by the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Hundreds of runners and walkers with an appetite for competition and a heart for charity have participated in this year's ADRA New Zealand Fun Run.
Alrighty guys, good luck with your run.
The serious athletes took on the 21k course along Auckland's waterfront, while the less confident ran or walked the 5 or 10 kilometre route. Eve has participated in the ADRA Fun Run twice before. But despite her disabilities, she did her share of fundraising and once again made it across the finish line. This year, the fun run raised 45,000 Kiwi dollars. Well, that's the news for this week. And James, Auckland, such a beautiful part of the world. I was there recently and the magnolias were out. It was just stunning.
Yeah, you know, Danielle, that's where Lisa and I got engaged. Wow. And so for me, it's the most romantic city on earth.
I bet.
Stay with us. We'll be right back after the break with Lyle Shelton from Canberra.
Planning your future can be a daunting task. What you want to do, who you want to be, and the road ahead can often be unpredictable. No one really knows what the future holds. That's just part of what makes it all so amazing. And that's why a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job, it helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Hello and welcome to this week's Politics in Focus segment. Joining us now from Canberra is Lyle Shelton from the Australian Christian Lobby. How are you, Lyle?
Yeah, well, thanks, Kent.
Now, Lyle, a few years back in Tasmania, we saw this appalling case of a 12-year-old girl prostituted by her mother to more than 100 men, but none of them were ever charged because they all said they thought she was older. But I understand a new law in Tasmania could prevent this type of thing from happening again.
Yes, it will go some way towards it, Kent, and it's been a good thing that the Attorney-General, Brian Whiteman, has introduced this law, which takes away the excuse from men like this who say that they didn't know that the girl that they were abusing was a minor. So he said that for a girl that's 12 years old, there is absolutely no excuse anymore. Now, we think the age limit should have been much higher than that. We obviously think that prostitution is wrong, that's violence against women, it's the exploitation of women, but at least the government has done something to try and stop this excuse being used again in this appalling manner.
Well, let's hope it makes a difference. OK, on to a more positive topic now, Lyle. The federal government is taking steps toward recognising Australia's First Nations in the Constitution. Is that right?
Yes, this is a precursor to plans in the future to hold a referendum recognising Indigenous people in the Constitution, in the preamble of the Constitution. Unfortunately, this doesn't have bipartisan support at present, and so plans for a referendum have been put off. But in the meantime, the government has introduced this bill to recognise Indigenous people formally through an act of Parliament. And we think that's a good thing. It's part of the process of reconciliation and healing.
Labor governments have been fairly strong in regards to symbolic moves in favour of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, haven't they, Lyle? But, Kevin Rudd's apology, for example, but have they really achieved anything of practical value so far?
Look, I think there's a lot that still needs to be achieved practically, as we all know. I think both sides of politics want to see the gap closed between Indigenous people and white Australians. There's still appalling poverty. There's issues of abuse in Aboriginal communities, which came out through the Little Children Are Sacred report. But there's also a lot of lingering grief and unhappiness over Aboriginal Australians' plight in our culture, and anything we can do that flows on from the apology which Kevin Rudd issued to further heal those divisions, I think is a good thing, and we certainly applaud this move, and we certainly think that a future referendum to recognise Indigenous people in the preamble of the Constitution would be a good thing and would help in this process.
Okay, thanks for your time today, Lyle.
It's a pleasure, Kent. Thank you.
Over to you, James.
Thanks, Kent. Well, it's a pleasure to welcome Lisa Morton-Standish back to the set. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks, James.
What have you got on your plate today? What kind of gifts should we be thinking about this Christmas season?
Well, before I start, James, I wanted to comment on your great hat.
Well, you know, I've been wearing this, as you know, for years. And when I first started wearing it, it was kind of a joke. But every year it's sort of, I'm starting to look a little bit more the part, aren't I?
That's got to be a good thing.
I don't know. Anyway.
So we wanted to talk today about Christmas giving and the true spirit of Christmas gifts.
Right. Okay, so Christmas is coming. You just go to Kmart, you go to Target, you get a whole bunch of plastic toys, you bring them home, you give them to your kids, job's done.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it, James? I think probably all of us could relate to the fact we have so many plastic toys, we just run out of places to put them.
Yeah, it's true. You need a new house just for this stuff. So what are the alternatives?
Well, some of the alternatives we have are really great ideas that can give gifts all year long. They just keep on giving.
Okay.
We also want to talk a little bit about some gifts that can be really great tools for sharing Jesus with children and maybe with some adults around us.
Now, this sounds a bit boring. Let's be honest. Like, who wants to get these kind of gifts?
Well, I think they're great gifts that are really going to excite
let's hear.
people in your family. First idea is magazine subscriptions.
Sure. Okay. So you brought a magazine here.
They're great. We all get bills and we get advertising. What about if you get every month a magazine that comes in the mail? So a great one for teenagers is Gigi magazine, and I believe you interviewed some of the editors on that.
Yeah, that's right. So you can just Google that, Gigi. Great magazine, a lot of fun for teenage girls.
Excellent.
Not so great for dads.
Well, it may give you some good ideas. Also, there's books. You can go to your local ABC Christian bookstore and you can get some real classics or some new books that'll be really helpful for kids and excite them.
Okay, so
Bible
this
story.
It's been around a long time. Surely it's time to retire it.
No, our children love it. Reading a chapter at a time, fabulous series of books. Also, True Stories, a really terrific one that I'm reading to my girls right now is one I really enjoyed, Swift Arrow.
This one's a classic, isn't it? The kid who becomes part of an Indian tribe. I mean, who doesn't dream of that? Great
adventure story and yet a true-to-life story with really good values.
Superb.
So also CDs and videos, another great tool, and great evangelistic tool for your friends and family are the Beyond series.
Absolutely.
Excellent Christmas gift to give. Also, we've mentioned before on this show, the Story Hour, Your Story Hour, which you can get at the local Christian store and also online. Great values for children.
Now, Your Story Hour...
It's stories about the Bible, about values, and about historical figures that have followed Christ throughout the ages.
And those are audio plays, aren't they?
Audio plays, terrific for the car. Also, what about thinking beyond our shores? What about sponsoring a child? A great tool to give in somebody's name. So you can sponsor a child overseas and for a very small amount per month can change a child's life. And it's also a great tool that we can use for ourselves. When I was teaching in the classroom, I had a child, every year we would do a little activity where we would bring in coins each day and we would save up money to pay for sponsoring a child in India. And one year, I especially remember a little girl came to me and she gave me some money, $10. I said, wow, you know, that's a really good contribution. And she said, this is the money I won in our school talent show and I want to give it to the child. And I thought, what a spirit of giving that the children are getting through that activity.
That sounds like a lot better than more plastic junk. Thanks so much for coming in. Some great ideas to how to make Christmas a time of celebrating the Spirit of Christ.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this break.
We're all searching for love. It's something we all want. It appears to be something we all need. People say it makes the world go around. Can love change? Can true love last?
Understanding Love is a new 5-part DVD series that is helping couples everywhere develop and enhance their relationships. You too can enjoy these 5 great presentations by leading experts. Order your set now. Visit understandinglove.com.au.
welcome back. I'm here today with Dr. Michael Bassous from the Bible Society in Lebanon. How are you, Michael?
I'm fine. Thank you, Kent, for hosting me.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Your first time in Australia, I understand.
First time.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoy your stay. Now, something that is disturbing to us in Australia, Michael, is every night on the news lately we're seeing destruction and death in the Middle East. It's Israel and Palestine and Hamas, you know, lately, but underneath that there's this ongoing civil conflict. You're based in Beirut. In Lebanon, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like bordering a lot of those countries. What's the perspective on the ground for you?
Well, the Middle East has always had these conflicts, and it's a vicious circle. They go around. We recall a few years back it was Iraqi refugees that we were catering for. Now it's Syrian refugees that we are catering for. 50, 60 years ago it was Palestinian refugees. So this is a vicious circle that continues to go around. The Arab Spring now has even produced a new process of change, and that is also very turbulent and unsure of what the future holds.
Now, you mentioned Syrian refugees, you know, pouring over the border into Lebanon. About 250,000, is that right?
The latest statistics I read today was 122,000 Syrian refugees. That's in Lebanon alone. Of course, there are another big group into Jordan and into Turkey. And so the government is trying to cater for them. Lots of NGOs, including the Bible Society, the one that I work for, we're trying to cater for their needs, looking at their physical needs, but at the same time trying to address some of their spiritual needs.
A story that really isn't making the mainstream media a lot, although it is coming through the Christian media, is some of these refugees being Christians. You know, we've got whole Christian villages being cleaned out by rebel militants, and is this scare tactics, or is this actually what's happening to Christians in Syria?
Unfortunately, the marginalized are the first to be attacked. Or if you look at the situation in Iraq a few years back, we've noticed that Christians were displaced internally and then externally, and the number of Iraqi Christians have dropped to half what it used to be 10 years ago.
Right,
and it looks like some trends are happening, the same in Syria, and we see that Christians are seeking refuge in other countries because they're afraid of the future, they worry, they look at what happened in Iraq and they say, well, maybe the same thing is going to happen to us, so let's get out while we can, while we can afford it, or while we can actually get out if it's safe enough. So these fears are genuine and we have to recognize them, and here's where the Christian worldview comes into play, and we have to be aware that there are Middle Eastern Christians. I think in Syria we have almost 2 million Christians living there. That's a large number to be simply gone through this change process that is taking place there.
Yeah. Now, you're the Secretary General of Bible Society in Lebanon, Michael. How did you come to be involved in that sort of work?
It was about 13 years ago. I worked in the business sector first, and then 13 years ago I had a heavy burden to go back into the ministry. I was very involved as a young man with the church, went into business for 12 years and then came back into the ministry, and I find it very fortunate. I'm a lay person, and that gives me an opportunity to be able to relate to all churches at equal terms in the Middle East, and we have lots of churches in the Middle East, so that gives me an opportunity to be able to network with them all at an equal level.
Now, as we know, I mean, you know, I think we were saying just before the interview, there are 3 times as many Lebanese people outside Lebanon than are in Lebanon. Now, you've got, what, several degrees, you know, Dr. Mike, I presume you're a PhD. You could have very easily, surely, gone to live in another country, and yet you've chosen to be based in Beirut and stay working with the Bible Society there. What's your reasoning there?
Yeah, well, it's a strange reasoning, and I don't give myself credit for that. From the first degree that I got, and it was in the USA, I felt the urgency to go back to my country. And throughout the difficulties that the country has been through, I've always felt peace, that this is the place where God has planned for me and my family to spend our lives. And so rather than uproot ourselves and go somewhere else artificially, this is where we are supposed to be. And we should never feel that we are foreigners. This is our land. We've existed there for 2,000 years, and we want to stay there being witnesses for Christ.
That's right. There are people there still speaking Aramaic, the language of Jesus, aren't there? Right there in Lebanon. Yeah. Now, You're currently out there helping Syrian refugees, aren't you? Providing practical help as well as Bibles. How's that working?
What we try to do is we don't hide our identity. We're a Bible society, so we're Bible advocates. We publish Bibles. So we go and we address families with a box that includes certain food items that will sustain them for 2 to 3 days. And inside the box, we try to provide some scriptures, relevant contextual scriptures, some portions, and to different age families. So we have a coloring book for the little children and their stories from the New Testament. So we provide that with crayons. And for the adults, it's a New Testament, pocket New Testament. Our experience...
How's it being received?
It's always been received because, first of all, we are not doing this under any disguise. We're saying we're the Bible Society and we're here to help. And we want you to know the reasons why we do what we do. And this is the reason. This is book inside this box. That's the reason that prompts us to be here. It's living the word rather than just distributing it.
Sure. Now, Michael, you're in Australia, and I imagine you've been in other Western countries previously talking about the situation for Christians in the Middle East. You're right there in the middle of, you know, the Israel-Palestine conflict, the Syria conflict. You're an evangelical Christian, is that right?
Yes.
You're also from an Arab background?
Yes.
Now, from a sort of, I guess, a political perspective, that must sort of have you rubbing up against people with some very diverse views on the issue of how to achieve peace in the Middle East. What's your perspective?
Well, it's our hope and our prayers to achieve that peace. And as you can see now, what's happening in the news, again, there are shells being exchanged over Gaza border. The issue is that this is a conflict. What we're seeing now are the symptoms of the conflict, and it goes up every few months, and we hear about it in the news, and then there are talks of ceasefire, and then it dies, and then it comes back. No one is actually approaching the root causes of this problem, and that is to have a two-state solution and get this done with. And so we keep on postponing the inevitable. We have to come back to the basis and say there are two states there, we have to recognize this and continue with our lives. And so all what we're dealing with at the moment are the symptoms rather than the root causes.
So obviously, as you go around speaking to people, you'd like Christians in Australia to be a little more aware of the situation there. What can we as Christians in places like Australia, which is a very long way away from the Middle East, you know, let's face it, what can we realistically do, you know, to help?
Well, we can ask you to pray, and we can ask you to listen to Middle Eastern Christians, because they've been living there for the last 2,000 years and they know exactly the context. And third and foremost, you can help through supporting the work that we are doing in the Bible Society. And here we want to thank the Australian Bible Society for being the upfront supporters for the work that we are doing in Lebanon and Syria.
They're running an appeal
They're
right
running
now,
an appeal for projects in Lebanon and Syria, and we want to thank them and thank the donors who are donating and supporting for these projects.
Okay, and I guess there are more details about that on Australian Bible Society's website?
Yes.
Great. Well, that website's right there on your screen. Check it out. And thanks so much, Dr. Michael Bassous, for your time today.
Thank you, Kent.
We'll take a short break now.
What secrets can past civilizations teach us? Egypt, Assyria and Babylon. Go online to find out at diggingupthepast.com.au. A free series brilliantly illustrated. diggingupthepast.com.au.
William Shakespeare's famous play begins. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. And is that all you are? Are you just a 2-cent player in a 1-cent production? The story of your life? Should your life's birth scream end with an old age whimper? And what's happening with you right now? Come with me 4,000 years ago to a Holy Bible story. Job is angry, he's sick, he's racked with pain, he has no money, he feels alone. Is he just a 2-cent player in a 1-cent film? See the curtain open wide in the Holy Bible, in the book of Job, chapter 2 and verse 3. Look who else is standing on Job's stage. The Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job? He still maintains his integrity. Though you incited me against him to ruin him without any reason, Can you see two supernatural mighty beings? Stage left and opposite stage right. The Lord, creator of the universe, is fighting Satan. See Job caught in the crossfire, standing still, centre stage. Your world is a stage. You are a player. And this production of This Is Your Life is somehow a beyond this world universal play, and what you do, what you decide, matters most to powerful beings beyond our realm. So all the world is a stage. You are centre player. Because always remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, God loves you.
Thanks, James. Well, do you have your pen and paper handy? We're generally in the giving mode at In Focus, but today we're going to ask you for something.
That's right, James. We've reported a few times on the two Adventists falsely imprisoned in the small African nation of Togo.
They've been in prison now for 8 long months without any credible evidence against them.
But James, we can send them a Christmas card just to let them know, and their jailers, that they aren't forgotten by the world.
Their address is right there on your screen. Please write it down and take a minute to add them to your Christmas mailing list.
You know, it may be just the most important Christmas card you send this year.
That's right, Danielle. Thanks for watching, and may God bless you.